Back to politics now. Pennsylvania emerging as one of those must-watch states in today's contest. Republicans in the Keystone State will send 71 delegates to July's Republican convention. But, as we just learned from Molly Line, under a state party rule, more than half of those delegates, 54 to be exact, will be uncommitted and can technically vote for whichever candidate they want at that time. Rob Gleason is chair of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, and he joins me now. Rob, great to have you on The Real Story. I guess it's been a very complicated system, although I guess they used to all be unbound delegates in Pennsylvania, so at least 17 of them tonight will go to the winner of the state, correct?
That's correct, and that's changed this year. This is the first time. We've lived under these rules for quite some time. I've been a delegate. This would be my 9th convention. I started in '76 when we had the first kind of competition, and at that time I was elected delegate. I was committed to no one, and it makes it very exciting for the delegates.
So who did you end up choosing, Ford or Reagan?
Well, you know, I was for Ford, and it's an interesting story. I committed to Ford early because the state party had committed to Ford early. And if you remember, President Reagan brought in Senator Schweikert. And it was pretty interesting. I mean, I went to the White House and got to meet the president, and I had dinner with Ronald Reagan, and they tried to convince us because even though we might have committed, as you said earlier in your last segment, we weren't bound by any law, so we could change. But most of our delegates stuck together, and we stuck with President Ford. We were the delegation that Ronald Reagan was trying to get.
Right. Very, very interesting. You could be in that exact same position, or the delegates in Pennsylvania this time around. Tell me, though, what's happening today, because I understand you have some fascinating numbers. As of noon today, 20% of the GOP electorate in Pennsylvania had already voted. How does that compare to the general election and enthusiasm?
Of course, it's always less than the general election, but I've never seen as much enthusiasm, and this was through some spot checking that we had almost 20% of the voters out. So we're probably heading towards 40% turnout, which in a primary would be unusual because we're usually around 35%. So it's very exciting. As I mentioned earlier, we have 145,000 new voters that have registered Republican, and you know they're all going to come out to vote. So that increases
let's
the
look
turnout.
at that. Let's look at those numbers because I think this is fascinating. 91,970 have switched to the GOP in Pennsylvania, and 61,543 of those switched from Democrat to GOP, and then you can see on the right-hand side of your screen how it's worked out for the Democrats. Why do you think so many Democrats, because let's face it, it takes effort to go in there and say, hey, I don't want to be a Democrat anymore. You have to think about it on time. You have to meet the deadlines. Is it the Trump effect, or what is it?
It is a Trump effect, and as your reporter said in the earlier segment, it's in the Southwest and the western part of the state where people have suffered because of the policies of the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton on closing down coal mines and the lack of jobs. So the people are feeling it in Pennsylvania, feeling this lack of economic opportunity, also in the northeast part of the state, up in the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area, and in the T. So the people are, this is what is really incenting them, and this is causing a lot of excitement for us. So you're right, it takes a lot of time and effort to change, and they're changing the vote for Donald Trump.
Very, very interesting. We'll see how it plays out. Rob Gleason, thanks for your time.